I think one kind of important skill that I want to get into a bit, and I know you mentioned a model for this called REST, is leadership. Now, when we think about leaders, we're thinking, the captain of football teams, the leaders always charismatic, the leaders are always kind of engaging us, inspiring us, giving the best speech and whatnot. But I think maybe a lot of young people might be put off by that, thinking, how can I even get to that where my communication isn't even on point? I don't know who I even am yet. How do you think a young Muslim or a young person can start developing those skills?
I think I want to tell young people something that no one's probably telling them, and it's a bit of a secret, right? That as young people, you have a lot of doubts, right? You're unsure about yourself, you're unsure about the world, you're unsure about how to deal with things, you're unsure about the parents and adults, and there's so many doubts, there's so much uncertainty, right? And there's no real clear path. What I would say is the path to success is very, very clear for you, and it's very simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's very simple. And I think if you follow that path, you will be ultimately successful. And I'm telling you, no one out there will tell you this from a work and careers perspective, right? And for me, that is all about, like you said, like what's empowered you is the same thing that's empowered me, is really focusing on Allah and improving yourself for the sake of Allah, right? Like for me, that's the secret of it all, right? When I look at personal development, when I look at all this stuff, Islam is what I see. The fact that Islam is here is it came as a personal development thing. Why? Because it is a guidance to take the people who are the lowest of the low to the highest of the high, right? So it's designed like helium to take something that sits on the ground to go up, right? And this is exactly what Umar radiallahu anhu said, where he said that, Islam, it gave us izzah, it gave us respect, right? Like if we let go of Islam, we're going to lose the respect. So as a young person, if you want success, if you want respect, if you want to be someone that other people admire and you want to be great and all this kind of stuff, Islam is the answer. Like fundamentally, Islam is the answer, right? And it seems strange because I remember when I was non-practicing, like Islam for me was this thing where like you go to the mosque and you learn Quran and yeah, you're Muslim and your identity, but it's just that thing that those bearded guys do, right? It's not really for us. Yeah, it's me and you now, right? It's not for us. But like when I think about it now, I'm like, man, I feel so sad for young people who are not like deep within Islam right now. Because for me, I just feel like there's nothing that's helped me in my life like Islam and like trying to implement the deen in my life, like nothing. And I'm saying that as someone who's done thousands and thousands of pounds I've spent on my own personal development. I've studied with non-Muslims and Muslims. I've read dozens and dozens of books and I've done all of that. And still I'm like, if I had to recommend one thing, it would be like Islam. And like, even when I look at my journey, I'll give an example because maybe this is a challenge a lot of people are going through. When I started practicing, I said to myself, you know what? I can accept everything with Islam, except one thing, right? So I'm happy to do everything in Islam except this one thing. And that one thing was music. Because for me, I was like so into music and into all that stuff. Like when you're young, music is your thing, right? So I was like, I can do everything. I'll submit to Allah in every way, but I'm not giving up music. Okay. So that's how I lived my life for a while, actually. Like, but I don't want to get into haram, not haram, but I just felt, me personally, I felt like music, no, it can't be there, right? So what I did is I found that as I started increasing my good deeds, things started falling out of the way themselves. And with music, it was that type of thing that I just felt like after I practiced everything else in Islam, the music, it just fell away without me even realizing. But what's interesting is not that it fell away. What's interesting is what it got replaced with. Because what happened, if you got a bad habit, the best way to kind of get rid of it is to replace it with something. So what I did is I said, I'm driving to Xerox 45 minutes every day, and I'm driving back 45 minutes every day, right? So what I'm going to do is on my 45-minute commute, I'm going to start with Allah. So in the mornings, I would basically listen to Islamic lectures. And by the way, young people, there's no YouTube, there's nothing. It's downloading onto like your MP3 player or burning a CD and putting it in there, right? Yeah. Not like one click. So I would listen to Islamic lectures every single day on the way to work, 45 minutes, right? And then on the way back, I would listen to personal development audiobooks, non-Muslim audiobooks, all about self-help, self-development, right? And like that whole time, that was the foundation of my Islamic knowledge, of my personal development knowledge, of me developing as a person, getting close to everything. And I think to myself now, if I didn't give up listening to music on the way there and back, like what kind of a person would I be right now? Right? I mean, I'm still a loser, right? But what level of loser would I be then? Like if I was doing that, right? And I just believe that the return on investment with Allah is insane. Like you do something tiny for the sake of Allah, sincerely, like the result you're going to get is insane, right? And an example of this is that, like, if I think one thing I always encourage young people to do, especially if they've got time on their hands and the work is not important, and if you can't find a job or anything, go and volunteer. So for me, I started volunteering very, very early on, right? And volunteering, like, it's so amazing, right? The return on it is insane in the way that because of my volunteering, alhamdulillah, like I met some of my best friends that I've ever made to this day, right? Because of my volunteering, I got my dream job. Because of my volunteering, I got married. Like everything good in my life came through volunteering and through giving for the sake of Allah. And so the same way I encourage these people, because, you know, one thing I didn't tell you, bro, is that, you know, when I got into Xerox, because I was in sales, it's a very money orientated vibe.
Yeah.
So like everyone around you is always talking about commission and targets and sales and this, and that's all they talk about. And I remember one time there was this lady that came and she sat on my desk and she started talking to me about money, and she started saying, oh, I'm making this much money and I'm hoping I'm going to do this and this money, this sales. And you know, it's one of those like movie type moments where I zoned out. Like she's just talking and talking. I zoned out and I started speaking to Allah and I just said, Ya Allah, is this what you created me for? Like, is this my purpose in life, to sit here, listen to people about commission and sales, right? And so for me, at that point, I was like, the dream I was sold about go to uni, graduate, get a great job and have a wonderful happily ever after, that was a lie, right? At that moment, I felt I need a higher purpose in my job. Even though I was the guy who's believed Red X's and I'm fully behind it, I feel like I need a bigger purpose. And again, alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful that I got the job at Xerox. Why? Because there was a Muslim sister at Xerox who I talked to, I confided in her, look, I need to do something more. I can't handle this, right? She was like, look, there's this helpline, like my cousin works at it, you should check it out. So I checked it out. It was called the Muslim Youth Helpline, and they would take calls from young people. Yeah, it's still available today. Yeah. And they would call in and they would talk about problems. So I was dealing with things like self-harm, sexual abuse, suicide, you know, these kind of really tough issues. And she's like, go and check them out. So I went there, I joined that. And you know, alhamdulillah, like that taught me so much. Like being a counselor for 5 years, dealing with these kind of issues, it developed me to a whole nother level, right? But the reason why I'm saying all this stuff is because I'm saying fundamentally, even when I gave Allah those years and this and that, I felt like every time I gave anything, Allah just gives you back so much more. And so as a young person who's facing challenges and this and that, like I would say sacrificing a little thing here and there for Allah, doing a bit more good and, you know, a bit more good on top and trying to get closer to Allah, that's the way you're going to get successful. If you think that by going away from Allah or away from Allah's instructions, you're going to get success, you might feel success in the short term, but I promise you will fail. I promise you. That's like someone who's nearly 40 years old is like advising you that you will fail, right? So I think that it's really, really important that, you know, as a young person, you kind of realize that once you do that, and then once you have Islam as your component and your tool to develop yourself, there is no limit for you. Like literally there is no limit, right? And once you realize that, then you can start doing like amazing things, inshallah.
Yeah, and I guess you realize that it's the blueprint for success. And even I'm guessing that for me, and you might be able to relate to this, when you listen to these personal development books and these points, you actually realize a lot of it, if you think about it, if you deep it, you think, wait a minute, this actually does lead to what Islam is teaching. I think one of them, for example, is where the successful person wakes up in the morning at this time, 4 or 5 o'clock, and starts early in the day. You know, we're taught there's barakah in the morning. You know, it's been told to us. It's there. We're not looking at it. We're getting it from non-Muslims. But the blueprint for success in our careers and what we want to do is in Islam. And I think if we reconnect, like you mentioned,
no, it's a great point you mentioned, because I don't know, like because of your age, right? If you've seen the original Karate Kid,
I think I remember it from when I was a kid.
So what happens is this kid, he goes to this old man. He's like, teach me karate, right? So he goes to teach him karate, and when he gets there for the first day, the old man goes to him, Mr. Miyagi. He goes, go and paint that fence. So he's like trying to paint the fence. He's like, no, when you're painting, paint like this, right? So he's painting the fence. Then like after he's on the fence, he's like, okay, wash the cars. And he's like, look, wash the cars like this. He's telling me. So after like a week or whatever, right? This kid's like, this guy's taking advantage of me. Like I came here to learn a karate thing, yeah? And my man's got me to do his whole house up. What is going on here, right? And for me, this is how Islam is, right? Like Allah's telling you to wake up for Fajr, and Allah's telling you to do this, and Allah's telling you to do this, and you're like, why is Allah telling me to do all these things? Like, why does Allah need these things, right? Allah doesn't need these things. But then what happens in the movie, you've seen the new Karate Kid, same thing, is he's like, okay, he's like, you think you've been cleaning the house, you haven't. You've actually been learning what you need to learn to be amazing at karate. So he's like, okay, he's like, wax on, wax off, right? So he's like, do that. And he does that move and he blocks the karate move, right? And he's like, whoa, I didn't even realize that I now know all these things without me realizing that I know these things now, right? And I'm telling you, like, when I look into like personal development, it's insane how Islam is like this, right? Because like, you know, you look at billionaires, you look at all these people, what do they say? They all say, wake up in the morning. And Islam, Allah forces every human being to wake up early in the morning. Like, come on, man, this is it. And it doesn't stop there. You might think it's just a morning thing, but like you're saying, bro, like when you get into the books, you just start finding thing after thing after thing after thing, which is how Allah has designed us to behave. And that's why I'm saying to you, ultimately, Allah has given you the blueprint for success. All you need to do is make the choice to follow it.
How are you doing for time?
I'm good for time. I'm here for you and for the people. So,
And like we covered an amazing amount.